With the NHL playoffs in full swing, Canadians are going all in on sports betting. Since it was legalized in 2021, the industry has been growing rapidly. Ontario put down more than $35 billion in total wagers in the past year alone, netting about $1.4 billion in total revenue. But there's growing concern that we're moving too quickly. Joining me with more is Associate Professor of Sports Management at Brock University, Michael Narain. Michael, good to see you today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Lindsey.
I have to tell you, when I'm watching these playoff games, it feels like every commercial break, I'm being told what odds are for what. Don't you feel that way right now?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. It is a bit like the Wild Wild West, and part of the reason for that is you've got multiple companies, third-party operators, in addition to the crown operators, who are trying to acquire all of these customers, right? And so when you talk about the numbers being so high, the reason why they're so high is because we're being advertised and promoted to and at, and so it's no wonder why the numbers are so high. And there is an appetite for gambling in this country, and it's going to continue to happen for sure.
So Ontario has a model for sports betting, and I understand Alberta and BC are looking to Ontario as sort of a potential example to follow. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, Ontario, if you're pro sports gambling, Ontario's model is looked at as one of the top models. It's very free market, open access. If you want to be a regulated player in the space, you can apply for a license, pay the $100,000 regulatory fee, and adhere to the government's regulations. So in that way, and when you look at the numbers, for a jurisdiction like Alberta, there's a lot of pressure when you look down south and you see a lot of these sort of third-party companies operating, and I'm not going to say any names, but when you see a lot of these companies operating, there's a lot of pressure because consumers are looking for those opportunities. Brands matter, right? And we think about brands mattering for our clothing, apparel, cars, whatever the case may be in our lives. It also matters for sports bettors as well. And so, yeah, BC certainly looking at it. Alberta's looking at it. Quebec's going the opposite way, and they've kind of confined themselves to crown-only operations. But there's definitely a lot of pressure looking at the Ontario example for the other provincial jurisdictions.
Well, Michael, many of the privately owned platforms allow for gambling, not just on the results of the games, but also like on everything else, right down to the color of the Gatorade dumped on the coach. Like, what's that going to be? They also usually include casino game betting. So how does this raise the stakes for gambling-related risk?
Well, absolutely. And what we've learned so far, and it's been early days, and we need a lot more research and education on the subject. But what I'll say is sport is definitely the conduit for casino gaming. Now, that being said, what you have alluded to, Lindsey, is this idea of not just betting on the outcome of the game, whether the Leafs are going to beat the Panthers, but if you think about baseball, use baseball as an example, there are roughly around 200 pitches in a game, even now with the pitch clock. And so if you think about, I can bet on what the outcome of each pitch is going to be, that's really harmful behavior at the end of the day. If a bettor is able to bet 200 times per game, if not more, and then if you are waiting for the game to take place, I don't want to wait 3 hours to know what the outcome will be. What can I do in the interim period? Well, I can go to the virtual slots. I can go to the virtual blackjack table. And that's where we start to see this addictive, harmful behavior start to take place.
So, Michael, what regulation should we see then?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the very first thing that we need is a lot more research and education. In 2019, the Ontario government paused a lot of the funding that was dedicated and earmarked for research and education in gambling, not just sports gambling, but gambling generally. And Ontario was seen as one of the most robust jurisdictions in the world when it came to research and education. And so there's a lot of feedback happening from stakeholders, whether you're concerned parents, whether you're free market consumers, regardless of where you fall. We're making a lot of decisions reactively right now without a lot of evidence to support. And so what we need going forward is a robust framework for more research and education to really determine whether or not these ads are actually being effective to youth under the age of 19 in Ontario and 18 in some jurisdictions, whether or not some of these behaviors are truly manifesting addictive mentalities. And so we need a lot more research and education, and that's what we need to start to see explicitly mentioned in these regulatory frameworks.
All right, Michael Narain, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Lindsey.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.